Hello guys, I'm John from Easy Data Learning Pod. In this chapter, I would like to share some useful tips that will help you generate a dataset from ChatGPT. This is one of the shortcut way to assist developer in creating testing data for unit testing. The developer just need to prepare some detail on what kind of dataset is required for the scenario. Yes, once the developer has provided the necessary detail on type of sales dataset that require, ChatGPT can generate a script that will create the dataset in required format. The script might be used programming language like Python, R, or SQL depending on the requirement of the sales application. There are important scenarios we need to consider in order to develop a dummy sales dataset. We need a function to generate sales-related data that include an ID, sales date, product, price, quantity, and total. Second, we need to take the generated data and import into a PostgreSQL. Third, we need to export the randomly created data into a CSV file. Fourth, we will accomplish this scenario using Python code. For this purpose, let's create a code as shown. As of today, we can actually create the random data using ChatGPT. Let's open ChatGPT and ask it to create the query for us. Let's copy the generated code from ChatGPT and paste it into our IDE, Spider, and start our coding session. Now, let's take a look on the query they created for us. So, let's talk about the generated sales data function. This part of the code is what we'll use to create our random sales data. We start by creating an empty list of dictionary, which we'll call data. Next, we'll use the random library to generate a random date for each row of our sales data. We'll choose a year between 2019 and 2022 using the random.randint function. You can pick a different year's range if you like. For the product column, we'll randomly choose one of the product from a list of options: product A, product B, product C, and product D, using the random.choice function. The price column will be filled with random price between 10.0 and 100.0, that using the random.uniform function. For the quantity column, we'll randomly choose a number between 1 and 10 using the random.randint function. Finally, we'll calculate the total sales amount for each row by multiplying the price and quantity column together. Once we have all our data, we'll use the data.append function to load it into a list of dictionary, which we'll call our empty data dictionary. And that's it. Our generated sales data function will give us the random sales dataset that we need to test for our code. Now, let's talk about the export to CSV function. This is the part of the code that we use to export the random data we generated earlier to a CSV file. First, we'll use the CSV library to open a file for writing. We'll define the field name as ID, date, product, price, quantity, total to serve as the header of the CSV file. Then, using the .writer method from the CSV library, we write the header row to the CSV file. After that, we write each row of the data using for loop that goes through each dictionary in our data list. Finally, we print out a message to let us know how many rows of sample sales data were successfully exported to the CSV file. And that's it. Our export to CSV function is all set to give us the random sales data that we need for the testing for our code. Let's continue on create sales table function. This function is used to create a table in the Postgres database for the sample sales dataset. Here's the breakdown of the code. We pass in the con parameter, which is our setup for the connection to the Postgres database. Then we'll use the cursor method to create a cursor object that allows us to interact with the database. Next, we execute the SQL query to create the table named sales with the column ID, date, product, price, quantity, and total. We'll also set the ID as the primary key. If the table is accessed, we'll use the if not accessed statement to prevent an error from occurring. Then we'll commit the change to the database using the commit method. Finally, we'll print a message to confirm that the table has been created successfully. And that's it. Our create sales table function is ready to create the sales table in our Postgres database. Okay, let's continue to talk about load sales data function. This part of the code is what we'll use to load the CSV file into the Postgres database. First, we'll connect to the Postgres database as curl. Then, we will open the file in read mode. Using the pycopg2 library, we'll copy the data from the CSV file into the sales table in the Postgres database. After the data is successfully loaded, we'll commit the changes to the database. And that's it. Our load sales data function will give us the random sales data we need to test for our code. This portion of code is defined. Con is our connection to Postgres. This function is passed by the database host name, user, and password as parameter to establish the connection. Once the connection is established, we can use it to create a cursor object to execute SQL command and interact with the database. Here, we are calling the generate sales data function and pass in 1,000 as the argument. This will generate a list of 1,000 dictionary, each represent a row of sales data. Here, we pass the data list and the file name sales_data.csv as argument to the export to CSV function. This function opens a file with the given name, writes the data to the file in CSV format, and then close the file. Once the function is done, we'll have a CSV file called sales_data.csv in our current working directory. Next, we create a table in our Postgres database using the create sales table function. Here, we pass our con object as an argument to the create sales table function. This function connects to our database. Create a new table called sales with column for ID, date, product, price, quantity, and total, and then commit the changes to the database. Once this function is done, we will have a new table in our database ready to receive our sales data. Finally, we load the data from our CSV file into the sales table using the load sales data function. Here, we pass our con object and the file name sales_data.csv as an argument to the load sales data function. This function opens the CSV file, reads the data into memory, and then uses the copy command in Postgres to copy the data into our sales table. Once this function is done, we'll have all of our sales data stored in our database. Finally, we close our database using the close method. Here, we simply call the close method on our con object to close the connection to our database. This ensures that we don't leave any open connection hanging around, which would cause some problem later on if we didn't close it. Here, we will run the code and check our output on the Postgres SQL and our CSV output. And that's how I generate a random sales dataset with the help of ChatGPT. If you found this tutorial helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel for more content. Thank you for watching. See you.